They say life has a cruel sense of timing. Just when you start to believe you've healed, it finds a way to remind you of the scar. Sarah Fields thought her heartbreak was behind her. Months had passed since the man she once called her fiancé vanished from her life. No warning, no goodbye, just silence. She told herself he probably wasn't ready, that maybe he had his reasons, and she tried to move on. Day by day, she taught her art classes, smiled to her pain, and learned to breathe again. But life had one more surprise waiting. That Sunday morning, her son David invited her to a wedding. "Come on, Mom," he said. "You've been home too long. You need to smile again." He didn't tell her whose wedding it was. Maybe he thought it would help. Maybe he didn't know. But when Sarah stepped into Grand Hall, surrounded by flowers and laughter, her world began to blur. There he was, Michael, the man she loved, the man who promised forever, standing at the altar, smiling, in a tuxedo that looked too perfect. And beside him, in a dress made of dreams, was another woman. Sarah's body froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Every whisper in the crowd became louder than thunder. She felt David's hand tighten around hers. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. His jaw clenched, eyes locked on the man who broke his mother's heart. Michael's smile faltered. For a moment, the room seemed to stop breathing. His gaze met Sarah's, and all color drained from his face. Guilt, fear, recognition. They all hit him at once. You could see it in his eyes. The past he buried had finally dug its way back to him. Sarah didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there, watching the man she once planned to marry, vow eternity to someone else. The bride, Claire, noticed attention too. Her smile faltered as she followed her groom's eyes and saw another woman watching from the back, a woman whose pain said everything words couldn't. Claire didn't understand yet. Not the betrayal, not the lies, but in that silence, her perfect day began to crumble. David leaned toward his mother and whispered, "Mom, let's go." But Sarah didn't move. She stood her ground, quiet, steady, dignified. And that's what hurt Michael the most. Not the tears, but the silence. Because silence meant finality. Silence meant she was done. When they finally left, David walked beside her without saying a word, but his heart was burning. He had seen enough. He had seen the man who shattered his mother's world stand at the altar pretending to be pure. And in that moment, David made a silent promise to himself. He wasn't just her son anymore. He would be her protector, her avenger, her peace. Because no man should ever get to walk away after breaking a woman like Sarah Fields. This wasn't the end of Sarah's story. It was only the beginning. Because sometimes love doesn't die. It just comes back wearing a different face. And this time, it had vengeance written all over it. Sarah hadn't said a word since the wedding. Not one. Her voice, once full of laughter, had become a quiet room no one entered anymore. David watched her from the kitchen doorway, her hands wrapped around a cold cup of tea she never drank. He had seen his mother cry before, but never like this. This wasn't sadness, it was erasure. He broke her spirit right in front of the world. The memory burned behind his eyes, his mother standing in the church, trembling, while that man said vows to someone else. And David had done nothing, because that's what good sons do. They stay silent. They let dignity win. But that night, silence wasn't enough. He opened his laptop, the same one he used for film editing, and began typing. Not a script, a plan. He wanted an audience? I'll give him one. But this time, the cameras will show who he really is. David's world used to revolve around storytelling, crafting emotion, building empathy. But tonight, he was crafting a downfall. Sarah lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Memories replayed, Michael's promises, the ring, the way he held her hand and said, "Forever." Her heart whispered lies her mind already knew. Still, she prayed he'd call. He never did. Maybe I wasn't enough. David stood at her door, unseen, hearing every word. That single sentence broke something inside him. Not pity, Resolve. You were too much for a man too small. And I'll make sure he remembers that. From that night forward, David stopped sleeping. He started watching, scrolling through social media posts, business links, and old photos. Every clue, every thread of Michael's new life was fuel for what was coming next. He didn't want to hurt him, not physically. He wanted the truth to hurt, the kind that stripped reputation bare, the kind that made a man look in the mirror and hate his own reflection. David's cold whisper. You made her invisible. Let's see how it feels to be seen. Outside, the city lights flickered, unaware that a storm had begun to form in the heart of a quiet sun, a storm named justice. Sometimes revenge doesn't begin with rage. It begins with love, the kind that refuses to die, no matter how deeply it's buried. And that's how David walked into the post-wedding dinner reception that afternoon. As if he belonged there, the hall shimmered with gold drapes and champagne light. Laughter rippled through the air, the kind that comes easily when you don't know what's about to hit you. David carried a small box in his hands, the kind caterers use for deliveries. It wasn't a disguise. It was a door. Blend in. Don't breathe too loud. Not yet. He'd spent nights studying the guest list, the venue layout, the moment the microphone would be passed for open tributes. Everything was calculated, every second rehearsed, because this wasn't chaos. It was choreography. The master of ceremonies smiled, lifting the mic. Now, if anyone would like to say a few words for the newlyweds. David raised his hand. A few heads turned, curious, polite, unsuspecting. He stepped forward. His voice didn't shake. It couldn't. Congratulations to the happy couple. It's beautiful to see two people find love, especially when one of them has already practiced the vows before. The air fractured. Confusion spread like fire through silk. Claire the bride tilted her head, a faint smile frozen in place. Michael's hand, once confidently resting on hers, stiffened. Michael Fields, you remember me, right? You should... I helped you pick out that engagement ring for my mother. Silence. Then whispers. Then the sound of a glass shattering on marble. David didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Truth, when spoken at the right time, is louder than any scream. You disappeared 6 months ago. No closure, no goodbye. You let her believe she wasn't enough. And today, you made her watch you marry someone else. The bride's face drained of color. Michael tried to speak. His mouth opened, but the words drowned in shame. This isn't the place. David, cutting in, calm steel. It's exactly the place. Because love deserves honesty, even when it's inconvenient. David turned to the crowd, their eyes wide, their smiles gone. Every whisper felt like a verdict. Every breath, a question no one wanted to ask aloud. If you ever loved someone enough to see them destroyed by lies, you'd understand why I'm standing here. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He just left the mic on the table and walked away. Behind him, the chaos began. Claire's voice cracked through the silence, demanding answers. Michael's voice trembled. Claire's tears stained the lace she once called happiness. And guests whispered the kind of things people whisper when masks finally fall. Outside, under the fading light, David stood still, a storm behind calm eyes. He had done what he came to do. But sometimes justice comes with aftershocks you never planned for. He heard her before he saw her, his mother's voice soft trembling. David, what did you do? She wasn't angry. She was scared. Not of him, but of what pain might do to a kind heart like his. I told the truth, Mom. That's all. The truth can hurt, son. And sometimes it hurts more than lies ever could. Tears shimmered in her eyes, not from shame, but from seeing her son fight a battle she'd never asked him to fight. Then something unexpected happened. One by one, guests began to step outside. Not with anger, but with understanding. A woman from the crowd, older, elegant, approached Sarah. I knew Michael years ago. He's done this before. You deserve better. The words struck Sarah harder than any insult ever could, because they carried truth and compassion she didn't think she'd find here. Soon, others came too. Friends, strangers, people who remembered her kindness. The same world that once watched her break now began to lift her. You shouldn't have done it, David, but thank you. I just couldn't watch him win, Mom. Not after what he did to you. In that moment between pain and peace, Sarah realized something. Her son hadn't destroyed anything. He'd simply revealed the truth she was too kind to show. As they walked away, David didn't look back. He didn't need to, because behind them, Michael's perfect world was crumbling, the bride's voice rising in disbelief, the guests turning away, and the wedding that once sparkled, now dimming into dust. For every heartbreak, there's a reckoning, and for every betrayal, a moment when truth finds its voice. That night, Sarah sat by her window again, the same spot where she once cried alone. But this time, she wasn't breaking. She was breathing. Maybe this is where healing begins. David stood in the doorway, watching her, no words needed. Sometimes love isn't about saving someone. Sometimes it's about standing beside them when the world falls apart.